Hello, lovelies. Welcome to the walled garden. We're just gonna do a quick reading today. I'm gonna do this as a series, I think, every week. So this is Whispers from the Garden. So from your own walled garden. Just a quick pulse on what's ahead, what's brewing for the week, what energy you're in, what energies you may be working with, and a little bit of guidance along the way. So I pre-shuffled and pulled the cards so that we can keep it quick because I tend to not be quick. So asked a couple of questions today. So the first question was, what is your energy this week? And it is the magician. So um, the magician is um, a manifester and somebody who's able to work with all of the different elements. So sort of alchemically, that's earth and water and air and fire. But then in terms of what that represents, it's materiality, thoughts, energy, creativity, and emotion. Um, so not a bad energy to be working with this week. Um, I do think it's important though, the magician. I feel like it can be represented one of two ways. So one is more of a sort of Merlin seasoned, wizard type magician, like knowing all the things and harnessing them. And then the other version is sort of still learning, not having fully mastered everything. Um, and I've seen the Emperor positioned as sort of like the the final version of that archetype. But um I think it could go either way, but my inclination this week is that you're learning. It's not that you feel totally in control of everything. It's that you actually have more power and more ability than you think. And let's get into what that looks like. So the next question was, what energy do you want to be leaning toward this week? And that's the star, which is beautiful. So, um, hope, optimism, um, things working out. Stars appear in the darkness. Um, so it's keeping, and we see this magician card is very dark, and it has sort of a celestial background, but the hands themselves are also dark. Um, so there's something about seeing light in amidst that darkness. The next question was, what energy do you want to move away from? So you're moving towards something, away from something else. And that's Ace of Swords. So Ace of Swords is, not a bad energy. It is clear, decisive thinking, new ideas. But I think what the message here is it's about working with what you've already got. So it's not bringing new ideas. So, and I think especially this card, uh, especially coming out of this darkness, this card is bright and shiny. You've got all these glittering, sparkling gems. The sword itself is shiny silver. It's got a bejeweled hilt. Like everything about it is shiny and sparkly. And it's really easy to get pulled into a new idea, or to think that in order to work your magic, to do your thing, there's something you're waiting on. You need a new idea, a new revelation, a new insight. And this is saying move away from that. Have more trust and faith in what you already have, what you already know, what you're already working with. And then the last card here is what visiting energy you'll encounter this week. And that's the Four of Wands, which is beautiful. That's celebration. good times, homecoming, all of those kinds of things. Often weddings, events like that. So you could have, an event planned. It could also just be that sort of energy that you encounter this week for one reason or another. Um, it could also be you encounter someone who who has that effect on you, either because they're from a fond time, in your past, or there's just that like fun sort of celebratory feeling with them. But that's not a bad visitor to have, especially, if you are feeling a little bit more of that darkness. So then for the oracle cards, um, we got a couple of things. So first, Earthworm. This is your guide, your partner this week. And I love the Earthworm because it's an unassuming little guy. I am gonna pull the book out to see if there's anything juicy that stands out, but for me immediately what I'm getting from the Earthworm is, like I said, earthworms are unassuming, but they are essential parts of the ecosystem. Um, they don't try to be more than they are. They're low to the ground. They're, essentially part of the composting process. So to me, this is very much that sort of magician energy, but not trying to be new and shiny or grand. It's like staying low to the ground, staying to the things that you know, and sort of working the system. Keep doing what you're doing, keep moving through things, holding on to that hope or that idea of what's at the end. And I love that sort of rainbow in the middle that, hints at something else. Earthworm, shy, hesitant, reluctant to share inner vision. We have all felt the woes of the earthworm at some point. Can indicate a newbie or novice working to establish confidence in a new field. So there we go with my read on the magician being, you're still learning this energy. Um, Others may seem wise and experienced, but it's important to remember that they once felt this energy too. Don't be intimidated or lose hope. Mastery takes time. You're on the right track. Besides, rumor has it a beginner's mind offers the most valuable insights. To bring into balance, speak up, risk embarrassment. So uh, this definitely affirms that sort of beginner's energy. But I think in whatever you're working on, if it's just going through your week, if it's your job, if it's healing, if it's a craft that you're taking on, it's really easy to look at people who are further along or seem to have it all figured out and compare yourself to them, but like you're at a different stage in the journey, and at some point they were at the same stage. So it's not a fair comparison. Don't get caught up in that. You're where you're supposed to be. So don't, don't be looking at other people, other ideas, what's going on. Stay low. Keep doing what you're doing. You are in the right place. From the herbarium, this is just whatever guidance or advice you need. Okay, so fern, pterodophyta fern, is one of the longest, or is it pterodophyta? I think it's Dophyta. Um, Fern is one of the longest lived plants in history, having witnessed eras, epochs, and centuries pass and go. An ancestral plant, like the legends in which it is featured, linked to the woods, to the divine male polarity. It is said burning it propitiates rain, giving nourishment for the fields. It tells of the masks one is forced to wear in the presence of situations that make one feel uncomfortable. Subterfuge becomes the escape route from a cumbersome and difficult presence. However, one cannot forget that one's feelings and emotions must take priority. They cannot be concealed for the sake of quiet living, so as to not come into conflict, so as to not have to express a different opinion. Personal authenticity, living outside the fronds of respectability, is what makes you unique and special. What sets you apart are your thoughts, which are valid and profound. You are not strong just because you play at being strong. You become strong with the legitimacy of your soul, with a value you yourself must place on it. The time has come to stop acting and have the courage to face situations with sincerity. No one says it will be easy, but it will be effective and restore value to your soul. Lift up your heart and emotions. You're worth more than the masks you choose to wear. So that gets back to that idea from Earthworm about how to bring that into balance is to speak up, risk embarrassment. This is really about not shying away from being your authentic self. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to announce every thought or opinion you have with a megaphone, introduce yourself to strangers with that information, but it's about when a moment of friction comes up, not hiding behind social niceties or not wanting to upset somebody. It's about saying what you need and feel. And that can be, I think ferns are sort of gentle plants, so it doesn't have to be, an aggressive, assertive thing, but it's not hiding it either. So there's definitely some messages around authenticity in there. And then lastly, we have pine cone, third eye, perspective, sensation, gut feeling. Few things are more evocative of a country drive in the Mid-South than pine trees. The straw and the cones and the intoxicating scent are everywhere. The pineal gland in the brain, which produces melatonin and is described as the seat of the soul, was named after the pine cone. As with many iconic symbols throughout history, the shape of the ubiquitous pine cone has been used throughout history to allude to spiritual enlightenment and the third eye. They are also a popular accessory in many southern homes, as the cone's shape is beautiful and the porous wood can effectively hold the scent of essential oils. Are you in touch with your third eye, your intuition? This card calls you to seek the intelligence that is within the very fiber of your being. We can become disconnected from our inner light, which makes us feel unmoored, as though we are somehow separate from the universe around us. The wisdom is within you. It was there before you were born. Tap into it. So I think, especially with this authenticity, this, beginner identity, beginner space, it can be really hard to get caught up in what is going on around you and also what is going on in your mind, to get carried away with your thoughts. And so pinecone, even though this is associated with air, at least in this book, like pine cones come from hardy, sturdy trees. So the energy there to me is also very grounded. So when you're, and actually that ties into the magician, because if you think about like rooting but also being connected to the air, also connecting, through your third eye to your intuition, it's about bringing all of those parts together. And when you get carried away in your thoughts, or even like when you're too grounded, maybe when you're feeling the earthworm too much, you're feeling a little too small, a little too easy to be stepped upon, like you're what you're doing maybe doesn't seem as important, or you don't feel as far along as you'd like to be. Tapping into that third eye perspective just can help you get back to your energy and remember who you are, what you value, what you're worth. And once you sort of fill back up with that, it gets easier to return to the situation and have a better perspective on it. And additionally, pine cones, ferns, earthworms, you may encounter them this week, or you know have additional connections or meditations with them as well. Anyway, so that is the week ahead. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I will see you again soon. Bye.